Today on Face-to-Face Conversations, I am thrilled to be talking to Judy Weiser. Judy is a psychologist, an art therapist, international lecturer, and most importantly of all, one of the early pioneers of phototherapy and therapeutic photography. So really, really excited to be sharing this interview with her with you today. Judy believes that pictures are an opportunity to reconnect herself to moments in time as if she's really there and she's back there reliving the moments. And she believes that how we impact others really defines how we live our lives and who we are. And today's interview digs deep into two pictures of hers that have been really significant in her life, and she gives us loads of fascinating and insightful information on the power of photography and using it in a therapeutic way. Enjoy. Judy, welcome to Face-to-Face Conversations. Thank you very much for joining me today. Please tell me about your picture.
When you said send one picture, I was like, why didn't she say 20? Because that would have been much easier. Okay, so this picture was taken, I'll give you the surface details first. The picture was taken on my 60th birthday. My husband and I took a little, because we live in a beautiful scenery area, we took a little one-day tourist boat trip. There are 30 tourists on the boat. You pack your lunch and they take you up these beautiful inlets, and you go in front of waterfalls, and I'm out on the bow of the boat going, this is fun. And so I was smiling so much, and I was talking to him, I'm like this, and I had my elbow on the railing, I had my other hand on my hip going, this is life, this is wonderful. And I sort of just looked at him, and he snapped the picture. And then he snapped other pictures. We had pictures of him, pictures of us, whatever. It was just what I call a me at photo. Me at the zoo, me at the park, me at the school, me at the waterfall on a boat. And it was just, you take the pictures, you look at them later, you remove some from your phone or your camera. This one stayed. I really liked this. I thought I looked really happy. I looked really me. I didn't have to have lipstick and hair curled and a fancy dress. That's me, comfortable shoes, comfortable clothes, out in nature. And when I got home, it was in my mind. It was bugging me. It was reminding me of something. And then I went on to my website, which, as you know, has to do with using photos to help people. And I have web pages that are illustrated with sample examples of photos. And in the family album web page, because it's not ethical for me to show someone else's family album on a public website because there's other people and I'd have to get everyone's permission, I use my own family album. And when I went to the family album page to do a bit of editing, bingo, I got it, because one of the photos on I have goosebumps telling you this story. One of the photos on the family albums page of my website, how to use family album pictures to help people, was a picture of this little girl, me, at 4 years old, dressed as a cowboy, and clearly not a cowgirl. I wanted to be a cowboy because girls didn't get to do those things. Foretold all of my interest in gender differences. I'm not bi or gay or whatever, but I am a very boyish woman. And I looked at this picture and I'm like, and I have on this cowboy hat. I can remember the smell of the hat in the sunshine. I can remember the straw. It was bright red. I had on my cowboy scarf, and my arms were like this. And I went, aha. And I went and I grabbed that photo and I came back with it. And I looked at these two photos side by side and I went, yes, I'm a cowboy. Yes, I did it. Yes, I'm doing what I want with my life. Now, if you look at those two pictures side by side, Look at the tilt of the straw hat in both. Look at the tilt of the hat. That angle is the same. You know, if I was using photography composition techniques, the angle of that hat and the angle of the other hat, they're not like this and that. And if you look at this is my right arm, right? In the photo, it would be my left arm. So let's do this. I'm doing exactly the same thing that I did totally unconsciously as a 4-year-old. Now, the backstory, I'm an only child. My parents, it was a long time before I came along. Like everybody else, it caused problems. It's probably why I became a psychologist. But from an early age, I was a child who knew what she wanted, who stubbornly refused to yield when she was convinced she was right. And I'm still that way, my husband says. And even if it meant being punished, I would hold my ground if I thought I was right. It often got me into trouble, but I held firm that I should do what I believe was right. And no, I don't know where that came from at such an early age. It's almost an iconic image because it's the earliest recording in the family photo album pages that I have that shows me, the me that I feel I am, rather than the me that my mother kept trying to design me to be. Okay. Now, the other page next to that in my family album, and I do have this, I don't know if I have it in my book, but is me in a ruffled pink, I was a bridesmaid, a ruffled pink dress, all dressed up with my hair in curls. And I was curtsying, you know how little girls go down on one knee. And that photo is the one my mother wanted in the album. And I demanded that she put both. I mean, even at 4 years old saying, that's not me, that's me. No, that's you. You're going to grow up to be a nice young lady and, you know, have babies and do gardening and whatever girls in those days were supposed to grow up to be. Meanwhile, all I remember from the photograph, I remember her taking the photograph of me down on one knee because there was a pebble under my knee that hurt and she wouldn't let me get up and move a little bit further over. How can you remember something from a photo taken of you at age 4? I don't know. It is now literally 70 years later. I am 75 years old.
Wow.
I still remember the pebble under my knee. And my point to you is, what if the family album photo had been thrown away? So as a therapist, a psychologist, I help people with emotional problems. They come to me for help with problems that are buried very deeply. A lot of strong feelings they really either don't want to get into contact with, even if it helps. And I will say, you know, bring this photo. I don't know why this photo is so iconic. Here I am on an outing on a boat with the water and, you know, standing like this. And I don't know why I have such a strong feeling about it. And we can use that delete button awfully quickly in our camera. In the old days, you did your photos, the good ones went in the album, the rest went under the bed in a garbage bag. You know, what if my mother had not kept that photo? I still have the feeling, but I wouldn't know. And so this was like seeing an old friend that suddenly reappeared on my doorstep after decades of invisibility saying, hi, remember me? And me saying, yeah.
So when you looked at the picture of you by the water and you felt somewhere inside you, and I'd love to know where you felt that in your body, where you feel it. You knew that that this was Judy, a Judy that you hadn't seen for a while or a long time.
It was a Judy I see all the time. Everyone who knows me knows I stand with one arm on my hip. I don't know why. Oh, I do know why, actually. And that is another interesting thing that makes people very unique when they're talking about photos. This is a posture that has been decided by the deconstructionist people, like people that try to deconstruct art photos. This means that. This means assertiveness. This means confidence. It doesn't mean that for me. It's that I grew up with childhood asthma and my lungs are smaller than yours in proportion to your body. I do not have enough airspace. Okay, I did that for you. Like, okay, when I do this, my diaphragm lifts up above my hips. My arms are holding me higher than usual, and I can breathe easier. So when I'm walking, I'm doing this if I'm going up a hill. It's a physiological posture. So people who know me, and I know myself, I often, my husband at first said, why are you upset? No, I'm breathing. So again, we try to read people's photographs with the best interpretation manual we have, which is very poor because it's our cues and not theirs. No one would know that that's why I stand like that. But it is related to when I'm confident, I'm like, and that arm goes up. It's just who I am. Whoops, sorry. Something just fell off my computer. Okay. So I have continued feeling ethically right and what the Quakers call bearing witness. If you're aware of an injustice and you let it pass by invisibly, you're part of the problem. And if you are aware of an injustice, at least if you cannot stop it, you at least let the perpetrator know that it's been seen and it's been witnessed, and they can never again do the same thing again, thinking no one's going to know. Now that underlies my whole life. I have quite a past. I won't bore you with it here. There's a 1-hour video about my radical younger years that I can link you to if you want. But I help people with the Vietnam War. I helped get people to Canada who were deserters. I helped do protest march up to the gate of an Air Force base because whatever it wasn't right, and we needed to let them know we knew about it. I mean, that's just my whole life. So this air on my 60th birthday of I'm living where I want, I'm living with a good man, I'm enjoying getting older, it's a sunny day, I'm happy, and all of that sort of what I look at it and see happiness and confidence, like I'm doing what I want. So for me, that's what, but you may see it very differently, and that's where the fun starts.
Yeah, well, I'm curious about how these images make you feel. And when you look at Judy, who's 4, how do you feel when you look at her?
Okay, and I'm really glad you asked because I ignored that question the first time accidentally. Memory is in the body as much as, if not more than, in the mind. When you walk through a scene, according to the research psychologist I quote often, you only can take in and I will answer you. You can only take in information through your senses. Your smell, your touch, your taste, your eyes, about words don't go in my ears, sound waves go in my ear and it gets into the brain somehow. And the brain says that is a word. It means, turtle. The sound is what creates the meaning. Okay. The word comes to me. I'm speaking to you. There's nothing physically going up and down. And then when I speak to you, I'm making sense inside my mind to try to tell you something I have to describe in words because I can't give you a picture. The scientists say 80% of what you take in at any moment is through your eyes. It's a primary sense for perception. Smell is quicker, but eyes are 80% for most people, not everyone. So when you are in a scene and something happens, let's just say, a bird flies in the window while we're talking. When something happens, it embeds that moment in our senses, in our body. And when we look at a photo and we look at a moment, we not only see it as if it's real, as if it's alive, as if it's right now, and as if we're in it, not looking through a camera. We are part of that scene. You're there looking at me on that boat. You're not looking at a piece of paper. It's human stuff. So for me, when I look at a photo of me, and I think this happens to everyone, my body remembers. Like I looked at the photo of the little girl and I said, I remember the red shiny straw, and I remember the smell of the sun on that straw. So now when I look at this picture, finally to answer your question, maybe the question is, where do you feel the photo rather than what do you see? And where I feel the photo, no one's ever asked this before, so hold on a second. It's sort of like a gestalt, like a whole thing. It's not like one place. But there is a feeling of easy breathing, openness. I'm safe. It's a good place to be. I'm with someone who knows me. Now, those are still thoughts, but the feeling that happens is one of, I don't know how to put a word on it. It's one of, nothing's tense. Everything's relaxed. The breathing is not having to be on guard. The muscles are holding me up. The stomach isn't bothered. I feel the sun on my, it's just sort of a gestalt of feeling, but you're right, because people, feelings are in the body as well as the mind. And my problem as a therapist often is to get people to answer questions like you asked me, which is, if we're going to help you get over this trauma, where does it live? Where does it live in your body?
So can I ask you then, staying with Judy, aged 4, when you look at this picture, and thank you for telling me how you feel. What do you see in her eyes?
Well, I'm looking at a very small version of it that I stuck on my screen so I could answer your question. So hold on a second. Stubborn resistance, but love for my mother, who I know really doesn't like me in that mode, but lets me do it. So
did she take this picture of you?
Yeah.
Right.
Not the older one, but the 4-year-old one. I also remember, believe it or not, where it was, whose house I'm standing in front of, whose house is in the background. 4-year-old memory. That's pretty impressive.
It is.
What I see, if I was looking at this child as a stranger, what I would see would be a gaze that I would say probably look confident. As me looking at myself, which is hard for all of us to do, when I'm doing therapy, I have a list of questions like, what would you title the photo? What would it say if it could speak or whatever? And where I'm turning to now is me saying, yeah. The eyes to me are conveying, don't dare me, like, or this is what I want to look like. It's sort of an emphatic, gentle resistance.
Okay, I love her. I think she's incredible, 4-year-old Judy. And I'm fascinated to ask you, what do you think she would say to Judy in the second picture?
That's one of my therapy questions. Good for you. That's in my book. What would it say if it could speak? What would it tell you? What would you tell it? Do you have any questions to ask it? What would it answer? Is it got any questions to ask you? Are there any secrets? So, all right. So you want to know that if I was, for example, here we go. That's why I printed these out. If I was to hold one in one hand and one in the other and say, you talk to her, and then you talk to her. Okay. So you told me, you said, what would she say to the older Judy?
Yeah.
You did it, or you stayed true to the real Judy, or happy to see you're still me, kind of stuff.
Nice. Love that.
The other Judy, the older Judy, would look back and say, I'm still you. I'm still honoring who you were. It was pretty naive and simplistic at age 4, but I think I turned out pretty much what you wanted me to be.
Amazing. I love that. And
I love your questions. You're good.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you so much. And looking at these two pictures together, side by side, and I love that you've chosen two, and the story is just beautiful. looking at these pictures side by side, what is your overwhelming feeling looking at them both together?
I think I just already did that. What is the overwhelming feeling?
So you were telling me about what they'd say to each other.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering about looking at them together. This is 2 points in your life, and
Yeah.
and everything in between isn't there, but everything in between doesn't need to be said, because these are two incredible moments in your life, and I'm just wondering what it sums up for you as a pair of pictures.
Interesting. You ought to train to be a therapist, kiddo. You're good. I've never asked that question, and I've been doing this work for 40 something years. Okay.
Do you want to look at them on your piece of paper?
No,
Have you got them there?
No, I know what the pictures look like.
No, I know, but I just want you to connect with it.
Ask me the question directly and concisely.
I don't know if I could do that. I didn't beat about the bush. Okay, so you have.
I laughed that you thought this was going to be a 10-minute interview. Okay, keep going. Looking at the two of them together, comma.
What is your overriding emotion when you look at these two pictures side by side?
Joy, happiness. Just that I'm me, and nobody changed that. I'm the me that I was heading toward being at age 4, didn't know it yet, and that consistency of what's the word? Not dedication. I'm rarely at a loss for words. Hold on a second. So I stayed true to myself throughout the process. I'm looking for like determination. That's more of an active verb than I'm looking for. I feel, I feel a big yes. I feel I continued to be who I was developing to be, even though there was a lot of resistance from people. I made it. I did it. Yeah. That kind of a feeling.
And what does that give you?
What do you mean? What does it give me?
Well, you've shown us 2 points in your life.
Yeah.
When you were very young and now, and so you've just said in such a beautiful way that these pictures side by side shows your consistency of who you are, fundamentally who you are. And I just think that's absolutely incredible. And I wondered what saying that or feeling that, what does that mean for you? You know, I suppose when you look back over your entire life.
Well, I've had an absolutely fascinating life. Like I said, and I will say this, you can edit it out if you want. The archives at the university in the city where I grew up has just done a 1-hour interview with me about the parts of my life that had to do with being a very active protester and activist. Again, that bearing witness Quaker concept of, the Vietnam War was wrong, and being upset with people who are living in poverty on the street is wrong. I have always shaped my life around helping people, and better yet, helping them to learn how to help themselves so that they don't need me to help them. And this process has led to me being a therapist. It's led to me being an anti-war protester. I'm very involved in the activities around Indigenous people in Canada. I have my patients, as a psychologist, my patients have always been people on the margins, and people who often are invisible minorities. And this thing of like, I know I like to help people. I'm going to do this, whether my mother likes it or not. I'm going to be who I am. I moved to Canada because I didn't believe in what the United States was doing, and my mother freaked out. Her only child was moving to another country. I still did it. I could explain it. I could share the reasons, but this kid at 4 years old was forecasting this very strong, resilient personality. And, looking at the one when I'm 60, it's basically, I'm still who I was at age 4, just grown up. I don't know if that answers your question. Some of what you asked me, I don't know if I can answer.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine, isn't it? Because there are some things we can't put into words.
Well,
And
the
that's
other
why
thing
we
is,
take pictures.
yeah, well, and the other thing is, you're an active interviewer. It's not a passive interview. Why don't you tell me what you thought I might say?
Oh, well, I was going to ask you if you would allow me to say what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see when these
no
pictures are
problem.
side by side. I just see a very empowered little girl who has got so much she needs to do in the world. And the other picture is you having done so much of what you need to do, and nothing is going to get in your way. And it's just absolutely fantastic. I see total consistency in your life of who you are and who you know you are fundamentally, and you've just held on to that, and you've never ever let go of that. And I think it's incredibly inspirational. And uh, seeing those two images side by side is very empowering, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. I love them.
Now, what if the little girl one didn't exist anymore?
Well,
The
that would be
photo.
heartbreaking. I might cry.
Oh, well, exactly. And this is what my warning. I mean, I pioneered the field of phototherapy, using photos to help people, whether you're a therapist or someone who's just come up with an idea and there isn't a therapist needed in that situation. So it's called therapeutic photography. I'm one of the world pioneers of this thing. I'm not into ego, but I mean, that's a true fact. And I keep trying to tell people, you can always throw it away, but you can't ever get it back.
Oh no.
And
Yeah.
that's why we have backup hard drives. What happened if you went out to go to lunch with somebody and came back and your house had burned down with your computer in it? Like, have you got copies of the 20 most important photos in your life
Yes.
that are not in your house? And the value of photos, one of the things that I say when I teach is sometimes we take photos and we don't know why until later.
Absolutely.
That's what this is about. And I, for the fun of it, am going to send you a photo of the little girl on the curtsy on the. You can use it. You can add it if you want. I have that photo. It's going to take me a while to find it, but it's really obvious that the me my mother wanted and the me that I was going to turn out to be were sort of two ends of a continuum. And what's interesting is my mother, who with her family, with her mother and brothers, walked out of Russia onto a train through the Ural Mountains to live in China because we are Jewish. And in Russia, Jewish kids were getting killed. And the father went to the United States ahead, and the mother brought the kids and took up residence in China so they could immigrate as Chinese. And the history of my family is leaving a place where things weren't right and going to where things were better, which is what I did when I went to Canada. So in that little girl, I have a hunch that in that little girl is the mother who was the only girl in her family who did that whole life before they came to live in the United States. I have a feeling somewhere there is maybe a photo of my mother going, no.
Oh, yeah, that would be amazing.
But we never find out because they didn't bring anything with them. But, I think my mother, in later years, we became very, very close. And, I think there's a part of her that liked that I was being assertive and arguing back with her,
Amazing.
I don't know. It's part of the narrative of who I am. And I have no siblings and no close people in my family my age. There's no one to ask.
No.
Ask your photos.
Yeah.
What would happen if? What if you had been? This is why everything leads to another story.
Absolutely.
And in telling the narrative, we have to make choice to explain to you. I have to explain something in a sentence. And a sentence is a straight linear thing. And as I choose what to tell you, I leave out other stuff. So I'm forming a narrative summary when I speak to you. But you can take every one of those little details and go deeper. You could say, all right, I want a photo of you at age 12. Well, there aren't any. Well, go make one. Do a self-portrait. Who would you be if you were 12 years old? What would I see if I'd met you then? So this stuff just goes on and on and on. And I still love it no matter how many years I've been doing it.
Amazing. It's so exciting, isn't it? Because it is endless. I love it. Judy, thank you ever so much for talking to me.
Stop.
It's been incredible. How's it been talking about these two images?
for me, I have talked about them before. And the reason that I chose these, like I said earlier, I used to be the opening speaker for the Perugia, Italy, sort of international conference on social action photography. And I would open by talking about phototherapy, which forms the foundation for all social action photography and therapeutic photography. The quick answer is my stuff explains why your stuff works.
Yes.
Okay. And I would give these. In 1 year, somebody said, we're going to be having photos of the presenters on the wall of the stairs as they walk up to the conference room. Send us any picture you want. And I said, can it be 2 pictures? And they said, yeah. And I said, so, that's what I did. And I had the story under it on the wall. Now, I'm not reading that story. That story does exist on paper if you want it. I think I've told the same story the same way. But for me, this is one of the things I like to do, is to show them to people and see what their stuff. I asked you what your story would be of them. So, you're welcome to, I can send you the written version, but it's pretty much what I said.
That's fine. Yeah. I like your spoken version very much.
Me too.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I relive it every time I tell it. So it re-strengthens me in my resolve. If I'm like right now, I'm trying to get all of my stuff online as online courses, and it's taking forever because I want it to be perfect first. And I'm hearing myself tell people I thought it would be ready by now, but it's not. And I'm looking at this kid and going, yeah, it'll get done.
Do you ever, when you talk about it and then can talk about these pictures over and over, do you remember new things every time you tell the story? Does something new come up for you?
These 2 photos, no, but usually yes. And often in my therapy work, I will, for example, I remember working with a teenage girl who had been adopted and was very embedded in the fact that her adoptive family wasn't nice to her. They didn't love her. And we brought in her family album, and I had said, well, show me some pictures, like, it'll save time. Show me pictures where your adoptive mother was angry or was treating you badly, and show me pictures where it may not be so true. And she was separating photos, and it was like, I can't find any of the first kind. And I'm saying, well, in your mind, those moments were painful and horrible. Maybe you just didn't take pictures of the bad times. So what would be in the pictures? And then she went back hypnotic. I did some hypnosis, and she's back to being 8 years old. And she's remembering all kinds of details that she hadn't remembered when she first told me about it. For me, I have explored, that's the wrong photos to ask you. I have explored these photos hundreds of times.
Okay.
I can't think there's anything else in that little girl photo that I would be able to add other than maybe trying to remember the shoes. What you do need to ask everyone you talk to is this photo cropped? Is this the original image in the camera, or did you decide to get rid of something irrelevant? In other words, imagine you're holding the borders of the photo, and I take them and I stretch them and I stretch them, and I ask you to walk in over the bottom of the photo and get into the scene and look around about what isn't in the photo that's part of the original scene, and who is the photographer taking the picture and what's behind them. And coming back to the photo now, you would never crop out things that are important to you. You would crop out things that were not. So if someone who knows you well had the original photo, would they have cropped it the same way? And why? And what does that mean? This is where the therapist goes crazy. So you haven't asked me if I cropped anything out. And the answer is yes, I did. For 2 reasons. One, I wanted to get my body posture in the same place, position-wise, in the photo. And where this looks like a beautiful natural scene, it's a waterfall. Okay. And there's another boat in the background with the child fishing. I didn't want that in the picture. You could have asked that. So
I could have done. It didn't
yeah,
even occur to me. It's never occurred to me to ask that. But
I've ruined you for
actually,
life.
yeah. No, usually when I talk to clients, it's a studio shoot, so it's totally different. But actually, thank you for that. I'll remember that, and I'll ask that in the future.
Well, even a studio shot. Some people don't want their face in a photo. There's a colleague of mine in Belgium who works with immigrant women who can't show their face. They show themselves symbolically. You're in a studio, how you do the lighting and how you distance the camera or set it up, even if they're acting spontaneously while you're photographing them, you're looking for something because you know when you want to hit the shutter.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still a co-creation. It's still a
Yes.
collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I love
Yeah,
about it. Yeah.
yeah.
Brilliant. Judy, thank you very much.
You're
It's
welcome, and we
been
could go
such a
on for
pleasure.
hours. So
We could. Such an honour and joy and privilege to interview Judy Weiser, one of the early pioneers of phototherapy and therapeutic photography. I learnt so much about questioning and what to see in images. And it was such a fascinating interview with somebody who spent her whole life, her whole professional life, looking at photography and images in this way, and her knowledge is so vast. I could have spoken to her for hours. It really was a joy speaking to her, so I hope you enjoyed it too. And do guess an image of yourself that has meaning for you, and ask yourself some of these questions. Take a little bit longer over it and have a conversation with somebody about it. Talk to someone else about your image, talk to them about their image, and find out what you can discover, and ask each other challenging questions. See what comes up. It's just an endless possibility of learning and self-discovery, and such a joy to get these insights at whatever age you are. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'll see you next time.